In 1975, a woman in Ohio could not open a credit card in her own name without her husband's signature. She had a job. She had income. She had a perfect payment history. It did not matter. Under the lending practices of the time, a married woman's financial identity was legally subordinate to her husband's. A divorced woman often had no credit history at all because every account had been in his name. A single woman could be refused outright. This was not a custom. It was not an oversight. It was the documented standard practice of the American lending industry, and it was perfectly legal until the Equal Credit Opportunity Act took effect in 1974. That was a protection that was added. This video is about the opposite. This is a documentary about 18 legal protections that Americans used to have. Protections written into law, relied upon by ordinary people for generations, and then removed. Not added. Removed. Every one of them is documented in statute, court ruling, or the public legislative record. Every one of them existed, and every one of them is either gone or so weakened that it no longer does what it was designed to do. 18 protections, all documented, all removed. Everyone traces to a specific law, repeal, or court decision with a name and a date, and most were removed quietly through reform, ruling, or administrative change the people relying on them never saw coming. Let's begin. Number 18. The right to repair anything you owned. For most of American history, if you owned a machine, you owned the right to fix it. The schematics come with the product, and the parts were available. A farmer could repair his own tractor. A mechanic could service any car. This was not a law so much as a default condition of ownership. But beginning in the late 20th century, manufacturers began using copyright law, specifically the Digital Millennium Copyright Act of 1998, to restrict access to repair information and to embed software locks in physical products. The result is that owning a product no longer guarantees the right to repair it. The protection was never formally voted away. It was eroded through the extension of copyright into physical machinery. Number 17. The Anti-Usury Ceiling. For most of American history, every state had a legal cap on interest rates, typically between 6 and 12%. In 1978, the Supreme Court ruled in Marquette National Bank versus First of Omaha that a bank could charge the interest rate of its home state to customers anywhere in the country. States competing for bank headquarters eliminated their ceilings. The average credit card interest rate in 1977 was under 12%. By 1990, it exceeded 18%. A protection that had existed since colonial times was functionally gone within a decade. Number 16. The widow's dower right. Under common law, codified across American states, a widow was automatically entitled to a 1/3 life interest in any real property her husband had owned during the marriage, regardless of his will. It existed to prevent a husband from disinheriting his wife through debt or transfer. A lender could not complete a mortgage without the wife's signature, her dower release. Most states abolished dower between 1940 and 1970 as part of property law modernization. The replacement protections require legal action to enforce and provide less automatic security. A protection that existed for 300 years, removed in 30. Number 15. The Homestead Exemption, original form. In the 19th century, 26 states protected a family's primary home from seizure by most creditors. In Texas, the protection was unlimited in rural areas. The 2005 Bankruptcy Abuse Prevention and Consumer Protection Act capped these exemptions in federal proceedings, regardless of state law. The protection was designed by legislators who had watched families lose farms to creditors. Its weakening was passed as consumer protection reform. Number 14. the right to a jury trial in consumer disputes. The Seventh Amendment guarantees the right to a jury trial in civil cases. For most of American history, a consumer wronged by a company could take that company before a jury. Beginning in the 1980s, and accelerated by a series of Supreme Court decisions interpreting the Federal Arbitration Act of 1925, companies began embedding mandatory arbitration clauses in consumer contracts, cell phone agreements, employment contracts, banking terms. By signing, the consumer waives the right to sue and the right to a jury. The dispute is to private arbitration, chosen and often paid for by the company. The constitutional right still exists on paper. In practice, for most consumer transactions, it has been contracted away before any dispute begins. Before we continue, if what you are hearing is documented rather than speculated, that is the entire reason this channel exists. Subscribe, and these investigations will find you. Number 13. The Glass-Steagall Firewall. The Banking Act of 1933 separated commercial banking from investment banking. A bank could accept deposits or gamble on markets, not both. It was designed to protect depositors. It held for 66 years. The Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act of 1999 repealed it. 9 years later, the financial crisis of 2008 erased an estimated $13 trillion in household wealth. Number 12. The Fairness Doctrine. From 1949 to 1987, the Federal Communications Commission required broadcasters to present controversial issues of public importance in a manner that was honest, equitable, and balanced. The Fairness Doctrine was eliminated by the FCC in 1987. Within a few years, the American media landscape transformed. Whether its removal was right is debated. That it was removed, and that the media environment changed dramatically afterward, is not. Number 11. The Mechanic's Lien, Original Version. First codified in Maryland in 1791 at Thomas Jefferson's suggestion, the Mechanic's Lien let any tradesman who improved a property place a direct legal claim on it if the owner refused payment. The lien still exists, but notice requirements, filing deadlines, and procedural complexity now effectively require an attorney to use it. A protection designed for individual craftsmen to use directly now requires a lawyer. Number 10. The right to buy medication at the lowest negotiated price. For a government program covering tens of millions of people, the most basic cost control tool is the power to negotiate prices in bulk. The Department of Veterans Affairs has always had it. Medicaid has always had it. Medicare was specifically prohibited from using it. When Congress created the Medicare prescription drug benefit in the Medicare Modernization Act of 2003, it included a provision known as the Non-Interference Clause. The text is explicit. The Secretary of Health and Human Services, I am quoting the law directly, may not interfere with the negotiations between drug manufacturers and pharmacies and plan sponsors, and may not institute a price structure for the reimbursement of covered drugs. In plain terms, the single largest drug purchaser in the United States was forbidden by law from negotiating the price. The Department of Veterans Affairs negotiates and pays dramatically less for the same medications. Medicare was barred from doing the same thing for nearly 20 years. The protection here is the simple economic right of a buyer to negotiate a price. For the largest pharmaceutical market in the country, that right was removed by statute in 2003. Number 9. Postal Banking. From 1910 to 1966, any American could open a federally guaranteed savings account at any post office. 2% interest, no minimum balance, insured by the federal government. At its peak, it held $1.2 billion for 4 million Americans who didn't trust commercial banks. Congress closed it in 1966. Every other major developed economy kept theirs. Number 8. The pension as a guaranteed benefit. For much of the 20th century, the dominant American retirement structure was the defined benefit pension, a guaranteed monthly payment for life, funded and managed by the employer, with the investment risk carried by the company. Beginning with the Revenue Act of 1978, which created the 401k retirement provision, retirement shifted from defined benefit pensions to defined contribution accounts. The investment risk transferred from the employer to the individual. The guarantee disappeared. The shift was gradual, legal, and presented as expanding choice. The result is that most Americans no longer have a guaranteed retirement income. We are halfway through. If you have made it this far, you are exactly the kind of person this channel is built for. The final protections are the ones that were removed most recently, and the ones most people still assume they have. Number 7. The right to privacy in personal communications. The Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable search and seizure. For most of American history, a sealed letter was about as private as a thing could be. Opening someone's mail required a warrant. 2 developments changed this. The first was a legal principle called the third-party doctrine. In Smith v. Maryland, decided in 1979, the Supreme Court held that information you voluntarily hand over to a third party. In that case, the phone numbers you dial, which the phone company records, carries no reasonable expectation of privacy. You gave it to someone else, so the Fourth Amendment protection thins out. The second was the Stored Communications Act of 1986. Written for a world of dial-up and early email, it set rules under which the government could access communications held by a third-party provider, in many cases with a standard far below a warrant. Now consider how much of your life is held by third parties today. Your emails, your location history, your messages, your search records. Under a doctrine written in 1979 and a statute written in 1986, vast categories of your most personal information site in a legal space the sealed letter never occupied. The protection did not disappear. The world filled up with third parties, and the law from before the internet decided how much privacy you keep. Number 6. The usury protection on payday lending. The usury protection on payday lending. When state usury ceilings collapsed after 1978, a category of lending emerged that would have been illegal in every American state a generation earlier. Short-term loans at annualized rates frequently exceed 300%. The protection against this was the usury ceiling. Its removal did not just raise credit card rates, it created an entire industry built on rates that the law had prohibited for the entire prior history of the country. Number 5. The chattel mortgage limit. Before modern consumer credit, when you borrowed against an item, the lender's claim was limited to that item only. Not your wages, not your home, not your other property. The Uniform Commercial Code, adopted between 1952 and 1968, enabled lenders to take security interests in broad categories of present and future assets. The limited claim became the general claim. The shift was invisible to most consumers and legally significant. Number 4. The right of communities to exclude chain competition. In the early 20th century, as national chain stores expanded aggressively, many states fought back with anti-chain store tax laws, taxes that rose with the number of stores a company operated, specifically to protect local independent merchants from being undercut and destroyed. These laws were not fringe. In 1931, the Supreme Court upheld them in State Board of Tax Commissioners versus Jackson, ruling that a state could legally tax chain stores at higher rates than independent stores. At their peak in the 1930s, more than half the states had some form of anti-chain store tax. Then they were dismantled. Through the 1940s and 50s, chain store interests funded sustained legal and political campaigns against these taxes. State by state, the laws were repealed or allowed to lapse. By the 1960s, the legal tools that communities once had to protect local commercial ownership were essentially gone. The protection was the right of a community to shape its own commercial character. The Supreme Court confirmed that right in 1931. Within 30 years, it had been removed almost everywhere, and the decline of independent local retail followed. Number 3. The vendor finance default. For most of American history, the most common way to buy a business or a farm was direct seller financing, meaning payments to the seller over time. Because the seller's priority was a capable successor, not bank approval, the professionalization of finance displaced it. Access to ownership without a bank is no longer a normal part of American commerce. Number 2. The right to be forgotten by credit history. Before centralized, permanent, computerized credit reporting, a person's financial reputation was local and recoverable. A setback in one town did not follow you permanently across the entire country. The systematization of credit reporting through the 20th century, accelerated by computerization, created a permanent, national, near inescapable financial record. The Fair Credit Reporting Act of 1970 gave some protections, but the fundamental shift from recoverable local reputation to permanent national record was never reversed. Number 1. The independent legal identity of the citizen versus the corporation. At the top of this list is the protection that underlies many of the others, the legal principle that an ordinary individual stood on relatively equal procedural footing with the institutions they dealt with. Across the 20th century, through the expansion of mandatory arbitration, the complexity of contract law, the asymmetry of legal resources, and a series of court decisions expanding corporate legal standing, the practical balance shifted. The individual retains rights on paper, but the procedural reality, who can afford to enforce a right, who can afford to litigate, who writes the contract, shifted decisively toward institutions. This is the protection that is hardest to point to in a single statute. Because it was not removed by one law, it was removed by the accumulation of all the others. 18 protections, all documented, all removed or weakened until they no longer function as designed. The pattern across this list is the same one this channel finds again and again. The stated intention and the documented outcome are two different things. Most of these protections were removed in the name of modernization, efficiency, consumer choice, or progress. In almost every case, the stated rationale was reasonable, and in almost every case, the result was a transfer of power from the individual to the institution. What was not preserved was the memory that these protections ever existed. That an Ohio woman once couldn't get a credit card in her own name is remembered, because that protection was added. That Americans once had postal banking, usury ceilings, guaranteed pensions, and the automatic right to a jury trial against a corporation is mostly forgotten. Because a removed protection leaves no monument. If there's a law, a right, or a protection you believe was quietly removed and should be documented, leave it in the comments. The next investigation often starts there, and if you want to see what else was erased, the channel page has the full archive. Untold American rights, the laws they removed, the money they buried,